Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed your tea break and you're nicely refreshed. Right, I'm here today because the CCG were looking for someone to champion electronic repeat dispensing, and I like to call it Project BIF, because it's big improvements for free. Now, as someone already pointed out, there's no such thing as a free lunch. You don't get anything for free, but you've actually got a piece of kit sitting in your surgeries at the moment that could actually free up a lot of your time. That's what the CCG is currently doing. Most practices are using electronic prescriptions. The actual rate of electronic prescribing is about 58%, but the rate of electronic repeat dispensing is only at 9%. So there's a lot of potential to increase that. A lot of these slides I'm going to skip over because they're for information. You'll get the slides afterwards, but they're largely things that you may already know. I want to just get into what the benefits are of repeat dispensing through electronics. The main points behind it is that the patient can get up to 12 months supply, the pharmacy is responsible for carrying out checks on each supply, and that there's flexibility throughout the scheme for the patient in terms of things can be reviewed, they can be changed, but the patient can also change which pharmacy they go to, they can get it dispensed in different parts of the country, so be it, without having to come back to the surgery. Just before going, is everyone hearing me okay? No. Right, sorry. Bear with me a second. You'll have to forgive me, I've been at an LPC meeting since 10 o'clock and I'm slightly drying up. Is that any better? Yes. Lovely, thank you. Right. Main benefits, it's efficiency, it's a reduction in workload. Quite simply, if you're generating lots of prescriptions every month that are repeats, and you're signing something every month that you've already said is okay, you're doing work that perhaps is unnecessary. This frees up your time, but actually gives you back some control as well. There's lots of benefits for the practices. This information I've not made up. I've got it off the NHS digital website, done on a survey of some practices, I think in 2015. My suspicion is that the information from 2015 was probably done on practices that were very keen and very eager, and the likelihood is that there's probably more efficiencies if your practice isn't as keen and eager. I suspect that the figures will actually be better. But so you can get the slides afterwards. This is all available on the NHS website. That's the one that made me stop and think, and that's why I've made it slightly bolder. Even if that was half right, I'm fairly certain if somebody came to you tomorrow and said, I can get you near enough 3/4 of an hour of extra GP time every day, you might be interested. And that's the bit that made me stop. One of the issues with electronic prescriptions in general, but electronic repeat dispensing in particular, is that we've focused on what could go wrong rather than what the benefits are. And part of why I'm here today is to say, well, actually, there's a potential benefit for you. NHS Digital kindly have a little calculator, so you can actually calculate for your own particular practice. If you go on the calculator, it looks like this, and it estimates what your benefits could potentially be. There's little sliders. This particular case I put for 11,000 scripts, 30% of them being electronic prescriptions, which is to say way below what you're doing across Barnes as an average, and 10% of those being electronic repeat dispensing. That particular practice would, on estimate, get that sort of benefit, which £10,000 a year looks fair enough. But if you notice the shaded area, that they're only getting 1/4 of their potential benefit. That's what they could get if all their prescriptions were electronic and as many of their repeat dispensing scripts could go electronically repeat dispensing. They could potentially get £41,000 a year in savings. So, being the sort of guy I am, I did that calculator for all of your practices. And the range roughly across Barnsley is between somebody doing about 5,000 scripts a month and somebody doing 40,000 scripts a month. I'll leave that up for a second while I have a quick drink and you can try and find out which practice you are on there. So, I'm not saying anything. What I'm saying is that they've calculated that these are the savings that potentially can come to the practice from hours saved. Yeah, they calculate 7,500 hours a year. It's It's GP time. It's time that's saved within the practice. It's not just GP time. It's saved across the whole practice. It's not just GP time. Now, I'll be honest with you. I saw this and I thought this cannot possibly be true. Because if this is true, why on earth aren't we all doing it? But even if it's half right, so if you've got a surgery that's generating 20,000 scripts a month, and you could potentially save 2,000 hours a year and £38,000 a year, I think this is worth looking at. And part of the reason I'm here today is, as I say, the narrative around electronic prescriptions, electronic repeat dispensing, is the fact that it's a change. And we're worried about what we're changing from and to. We're worried about what the change actually is and the potential of, what could go wrong. But this is potentially what could go right, and we could tap into that. So as I say, part of the reason I'm here today is just to actually see this. When I saw that figure earlier about the GP time and saving potentially 80 minutes a day, as I say, it made me stop and I think, well, hang on a second, why aren't we doing more of this? What's actually the barriers to us actually going on with this? And as I say, the biggest thing for me was that this is a huge amount of money that could be freed up. Now, I don't think that's necessarily real money. But even if that's resources, even if it's the hours, if you ignore the cash for a second. When electronic prescriptions first came in, when I looked at it from a community pharmacy point of view, I thought, well, actually, if I was a GP and I was shifting my workload this way, I could potentially lose a member of staff. Because actually, I'm employing somebody every month to take a piece of paper out of a tray, to take upstairs, to produce a prescription, to put in front of me, to sign, to go back downstairs again, to give out back to a patient. The surgery that's doing 20,000 scripts a month, approximately 80% of those scripts will be repeats. So that's 16,000 a month. If you, for the sake of argument, divided your year into 10, so you decided to have August and December off from writing repeat prescriptions and issue 12 months at a time, you take that 16,000 down to 1,600. Even if you've got queries on 10%, you take that to 3,200. You potentially are taking your workload down from 20,000 down to about 7,000. Now, again, I'm with you. It may not be real. You may not get all the benefits. Well, I'm more than happy that you said that, because to be honest, I'm with you. I think it looks like magic, and I don't necessarily believe it. The reason I'm presenting it without the background to it, this was all the stuff is on the NHS website. We can happily send you the links to it, and you can read what was actually done behind it. But I've been given half an hour. I haven't been given enough time to go into how they did this survey. I'm more than happy to come and speak to you about it, and like you, I'm sceptical. But even if it's half right, sorry, just say again. So
you said if you did take me half of my 90 minutes of time, that's
yeah.
45 minutes. So I'll leave my lunch in peace for 45 minutes instead of eating my lunch, signing my script for 45 minutes. It doesn't save me any time. It saves me hassle. It's giving me a prescription signing through lunch. It's not giving me time.
Right. Right. Okay. But that's at the moment you're doing them in bits of the day. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Well, I shall pass you across to my colleague from NHS Digital, and I'll come back and answer your questions in a second.
Cheers, thank you, Tom. We'll come back to that question. Obviously, Tom's talked about the benefits. I'm just going to give you a bit of background of how it works. But to be honest, on the back of that question that you do see the benefits. I mean, I have got CCGs across other areas who are averaging like 25%, and they do see the benefits. But I will come on to that towards the end. The idea behind ERD is the more you use it, the more benefits you see. It's just like EPS. The more EPS you use, the more benefits you see. ERD has the same potential behind it. Yes, the initial work of getting it going, I do put my hands up. Yes, it will be quite a workload for yourself. Identifying those patients, synchronizing them, and then starting the ERD off. You're absolutely right. But once you have that synchronization going, I guarantee you, your practice will see the benefits behind it. But I'll talk about the ERD, how it works. Okay, so basically, benefits all around. I'm not sure. Obviously, Banza CCG, I've rolled in third-party order, stopped third-party order as well, so it helps with the benefit of that. Helps with the patient. They don't need to reorder the script each month because you've sent it to the spine. There's no need for you to give holiday issues because the pharmacist got the ability to download the script beforehand. So they'll be saving time on that, saving time on reordering. And obviously, as the EPS benefits, a patient can't lose the ERD script. So obviously, there's benefits all around. There's also benefits for the pharmacy. So because they see what's coming 7 days before it's due, they get time to get stock, improve stock control, effective time management, and obviously there's fewer trips to collect prescriptions from the GP practice as well. And they're not chasing you up as well. And I think the other biggest benefit is obviously, I'm not sure how many practices around here have a pharmacy in the same building around the corner, and then the patient comes in, you press the download button, and it's not there. So then you send the patient back to the practice. The patient then looks on the PMR system. We've already sent it, and you're in the patient back and forth. That is the biggest benefit, I think, of ERD. Because the pharmacy gets it 7 days beforehand, they can just download it and give it to the patient, and it's there ready as well. Yeah. Control drugs, yes, they're at the moment we're doing the FOT, first to type, so they should be coming in soon. Schedules 2 and 3 within the next 6 to 12 months. There's no given date on that yet, but hopefully we should be bringing that in for EPS.
You're also cutting down less trees.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Yes, less trees as well. Yes.
Why the physician is getting the pharmacy saying this drug is not available in stock or whatever it is, and then sending the script back for us to change? How do you work with help when you're
Out of stock control items. Okay, I'm going to be off that, but I'll answer that. So out of stock control items with EPS, how it works is obviously any items that the pharmacy can't prescribe. Obviously, the pharmacy gives them two choices: either owings, or the other one is the pharmacy should be giving the dispensing token back to them, and they should be returning the script back to the spine. And from that, the patient can take that dispensing token, go to any other pharmacy, and the other pharmacy can download it without changing the nomination. So that's the protocol behind out of stock items. So hopefully.
So what they do is they send the patient back and say,
Back.
"I'll get that cream."
Yes.
My other cream. Oh, we haven't got that one either. Then send the patient back. No, we haven't got that.
That is. Yeah, but I mean, you're absolutely right. Yes, but hopefully you won't get that issue with the ID because they can see it 7 days before. But that pharmacy should be sending the script back to the spine and giving them a dispensing token, unless it's a manufacturing problem. Sorry. So, no, I'll come on to that. Okay, I was going to come on to that, but for ERD, I would obviously suggest to use stable patients only. You don't want to use patients that are regularly changed. So, for example, patients on warfarin or something, unless the patient really is hands-on and they're really savvy, then you can put them on the you think they're going to be all right with. But for ERD, it is stable patients only, and you can do an ERD for 3, 6, 9, 12 months. You don't have to necessarily do it for 13 issues or 12 months. You can do it for 6 months. I mean, if I bounce a question back to you, when you reauthorize a medication, you're practically saying, right, that when you go into a repeat template screen, I'm sure you all use System 1, and you reauthorize that item, you're saying to your admin staff or you're saying to the patient that that item is good for you to give for the next 6 months. And all you do for the next 6 months, you just sign that script. You don't review it. So it's in practice, it more or less, in theory, that's how ERD works. You're just signing it once and it just goes to the spine. And then after you've signed it, it is then the pharmacist's responsibility to make sure that the patient does get that 6 months of issue. Obviously, there is that as well. Okay, getting quite a lot of questions.
I'm
Yep.
sure you are going to come to the criteria of who needs to repeat dispensing in a moment. Are you?
I was going to come to that, yeah. So, yes, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's fine. I'm just conscious of time, but yeah, we was going to take some questions at the end, but okay.
If we're sending all these electronic or rather
Stable.
already with you and we authorise this and the other, what about if you don't have any patients?
Good point. I was going to cover that anyway. Yes, so the pharmacy, I'll jump onto that anyway. The pharmacy, once you sign it and it goes to the spine, is then the pharmacy's responsibility to make sure that that patient gets that item each month. Now, these are the 4 questions that the pharmacy has to ask each time the patient picks their repeat dispensing up. Okay, not necessarily in that order or in that manner, as long as that pharmacy has had that conversation to say, they are contractually obliged to ask these 4 questions. Yes, you're absolutely right. Okay, we haven't audited, you're absolutely right. But as long as the pharmacy has had that conversation with the patient, not actually ask them the 4 questions. The patient might come in for the ERD and say, I don't need my salbutamol this month. So that's the last question there. Are there any items that you don't want? And my meds, I'm fine with my meds. I don't have any reaction with it. So indirectly, they've asked the 4 questions indirectly, but not in that sense. But they've had that conversation. But what we're trying to say is they need to have that conversation with the patient to make sure that they're still okay with that ERD, with that item. And obviously those items that they're not picking up, they can always mark it as not dispensed. And if it is a regular item that they should be picking up each month, like a regular ERD one, then the pharmacy should be obviously letting you know, so then you can cancel it. Or the pharmacy should be contacting the patient. So there's benefits, to be honest, all around. How ERD works, I'm sure I don't need to go much in there. Obviously you sign it the once, it goes to the spine, and then from the spine the nominated pharmacy downloads it. Okay, I'll skip some of these. Okay, obviously you know that pharmacies have the ability to download scripts in advance in case the patient's going away on holiday. For that patient who went to France for 6 months, they could have gone to a pharmacy, said 6 months of issues, they could have downloaded. Well, obviously they're going abroad, you shouldn't be giving more than 3 months. So they could have downloaded 3 months and then given it to the patient. So you're stopping that patient coming to your practice, but obviously then signing, giving more issues and signing it. So there is that advantage to ERD as well. Okay, the prescription tracker. So hopefully might answer your question in terms of the ERD tracking. So every single ERD has the same barcode. As soon as you put that barcode on the prescription tracker, it'll tell you exactly that whole regime, where it is, who's claimed it, who's downloaded it. So obviously the first 3 there, as you can see, they've been claimed by the pharmacy. If you were to click on the blue highlighted link, it'll tell you which pharmacy downloaded it, how many items they claim for, and obviously when they dispensed it as well. Obviously you've got the other 3 there. The 4th one there is going to be released next, and the 2, 5 and 6 are going to be released in the future as of when they hit their date. Obviously just bearing in mind the next regime only falls down in the pharmacy inbox when they mark it as dispensed. If they don't mark it as dispensed, then it'll stay sat on the spine, because the spine will think that the patient hasn't collected it. So the pharmacy needs to mark it as dispensed in order for the next one to fall down in the inbox.
Excuse me, how did you get that screen up? You know, if we're looking at it and they're on the dispensing.
Yeah, that one there, sorry. So that's, if you haven't already used the tracker, that's the tracker there, that's the website underneath. So if you go onto the tracker and get the prescription ID, do you all use System 1 here, or EMIS? Is it majority System 1? System 1, yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, in System 1, to get the prescription code, you go in prescription history, and you get the code from there, the barcode, you copy and paste it, put in the prescription ID. In EMIS, you got to float your icon over the medication screen. Do you know how to get the barcode in EMIS? No? Okay. Well, it's quite complicated, but it's not complicated. It's not complicated, it's quite easy, but it is great. But if you get the barcode, if you put your barcode in the prescription tracker, it'll tell you exactly where that script is. And that's with all EPS scripts, not just ERD. So you can track every single EPS script. Obviously, you've got access to this. The pharmacy's got access to this as well. Obviously, we tell the pharmacies, instead of yo-yoing the patients back and forth, that's your first protocol. If you press the download button and it's not there, go into prescription tracker. Just bear in mind on that note, obviously the good thing about post-dated scripts, you can't track post-dated scripts until the date's due, and also the pharmacy can't track it as well. So if you do use a lot of post-dated scripts, just bear that in mind. So if the patient walks in and says, so the practice has sent my script over, the pharmacy won't be able to see it until the date's due. Hence we say either use ERD, or if you're going to do post-dated scripts, use the green FP10. Try and avoid post-dated scripts for EPS, because you can't cancel it and you can't track it till the date's due. Okay. So in terms of some of the questions that were asked, you do need patient consent. So if you are doing ERD, hopefully, you need patient consent. This is obviously to let the patient know what's going on. The biggest thing you can do to sell this to the patient is to tell them that it saves you ordering. Because they're already nominated for EPS, only nominated EPS patients can use ERD anyway. So the benefit to that is obviously you tell the patient they don't need to order the drugs everywhere, every month. So they come into the pharmacy downloads it, gives them the prescription, and then says your next drug is due at this date, and then just come back each day. So I think it's just, you need patient consent just so that the patient knows what's going on. And also the pharmacists can get involved in that as well. So they can let you know that we've got so many ex-patients that can be good for ERD, and you can just start them up. Like I mentioned, patient can change the nomination at any time. So if they're going away on holiday anywhere in England, they don't need to remember to take their 3rd or 4th issue with them. They can just walk into any of the pharmacy, nominate that pharmacy, and download the next issue. That is the advantage of that. They'd have to renominate the original pharmacy. So if they're going down to Cornwall for the weekend, they nominate Cornwall, and hopefully when they come back, they renominate.
Well,
Yeah, I was gonna.
well, actually, what happens is that they walk into their normal pharmacy and say, "Where's my prescription?" You track it using the prescription tracker. You find out which pharmacy it is. You contact that pharmacy and send it back. I've got personal experience of doing that. So they're actually getting the prescription, but getting the prescription to Cornwall in the first place from their existing pharmacy can all be done through the pharmacies. And the beauty of it is once you've got the set up in the system, that prescription can go backwards and forwards without having to trouble the GP because they've forgotten the medicines on holiday. The other advantage it's got as well, obviously, is that if you've got repeat prescriptions, bank holidays, weekends, I mean, I Heart Barnsley, as far as I understand, most of their work on a Saturday morning is doing repeat prescriptions for patients that have run out of medication because they forgot to order in time. Obviously, that relieves a lot of the pressure there. It relieves pressure at bank holidays, at weekends, and all the rest of it. But if I may, because I think we're a bit pushed for time, can I go back and address your questions earlier? Because there was quite a lot of questions about pharmacists abusing this and doing the wrong thing, and I understand the concerns. What I would say is, though, that with every system, it's not perfect. So I remember when doctors used to handwrite prescriptions, and when we moved from handwritten prescriptions to electronic, to actually being on a computer, they complained because they couldn't get 15 on a piece of paper, but now and they had to sign several sheets of paper. So I get that. We're now on computers. All prescriptions are done on computers. The next stage was to move to electronic. The next stage potentially is to move to this, and I understand that people would be reluctant about it. The CCG are putting in place audit procedures around this, where they'll be actually looking at what the pharmacies are doing. And if, in your experience, they don't get the questions asked each time, then the CCG have a follow-up process. But part of that process is actually involving the LPC, because I've never been contacted by the PCT about any pharmacy doing anything wrong in the last 10 years, any specific pharmacy, and being asked for our help and support for that pharmacy. It could be an educational thing at the pharmacy. It could be not understanding the processes. It could be something that's more devious. In most cases, it is education, it is about support. But the LPC is here to support pharmacists to do this properly. We want this to work because we want it to work for you. We want it to work for patients. We want it to work for us. We all know that we're under pressure. In terms of the financial benefits that was mentioned by someone earlier, the financial benefits for pharmacy aren't particularly great. They're certainly not as great as that slide would suggest for surgeries. The benefits in pharmacy are about planning. Because at the moment, we don't know when we're going to be busy and when we're not going to be busy. It's literally up to when the patients order from you. The current system is all predicated on, current repeat system is all predicated on the patient telling you when they want something and generating work at your end. Because they're in complete control of when the prescription is ordered. When the actual work comes in. The other thing with the current system is that when you issue a prescription that's not electronic and it goes in the box, as soon as it goes into that box or gets picked up by the patient, you have no control over that prescription. You don't know where it's going, what's being dispensed on, or anything else. At least with this, you've got a bit more control. You actually know what's going on. If pharmacists are doing the wrong thing, I'd be more than happy to come and help you and help that pharmacy. If they're still doing the wrong thing, I have contacts at NHS England that will investigate, and we've already raised this as part of the issue. We don't want this to not work. But my view is that for the NHS generally, we're all under enough pressure, time pressure, and enough problems. If we're not taking advantage of an opportunity that potentially could free up your time, then I think, as I say, it's possibly a wasted opportunity. But I understand all the concerns and all the reservations. Someone said across here earlier about why aren't we messing with disadvantages? The reason that we didn't address the disadvantages at the start is because every time I speak about this, someone tells me all the problems. They're happy to tell me all the problems. And that's perfectly natural. It's a natural evolutionary thing that when something is cheap, we don't want to change because the thing that hasn't killed us up till now was working fine. We're absolutely fine. But as I say, I remember using GPs used to handwrite all the prescriptions and they didn't want to move to computer, they didn't want to move to something else. I'm not saying this is going to work for every patient. I'm not saying that those figures are necessarily going to be realised in the first minute. But at the pharmacy, and I can see the benefits for us in terms of efficiency, not necessarily in terms of savings, but in terms of workflow and being able to manage at our end. But at the surgery end, as I said earlier, if you're doing 20,000 scripts a month and 16,000 of them are repeats, if there's 16,000 repeats a month that are being processed in whatever way, and the majority of them have no clinical input, I'm struggling to understand why you want to do them. I get the fact that if something goes wrong, you're aware of the things that go wrong, but I'm not sure about the number of times where things are going right. Because patients don't come back and tell us about the positive experiences. They come back and tell us about the negative ones. But I do fully understand your reservations, and I say I'm more than happy to come and speak to you about them. And if there's a problem with a particular pharmacy near you, I'm more than happy to go on your behalf, on behalf of the CCG, work with that pharmacy to find out what the problems are. And if the problems can't be fixed, I will happily take that to NHS England and escalate it. I'm sorry because we've just run over time slightly, but... I'll skip over most of the thing. The only thing you need to remember is obviously once your patient does leave your practice, you need to cancel the ERDs off. The only time the spine will cancel all EPS scripts is when the patient passes away. Good thing about ERD is you can change it halfway through. Don't want to skip too much. And obviously what we say is you are changing meds, just try and synchronize it in line with the others. So if you're changing it halfway through a monthly prescription, 2 weeks, you might as well give an acute for the remaining 2 weeks, and then obviously start a new ERD up in line with the others. The good to good ERD, half your problems I can guarantee will disappear with ERD if it's synchronized properly. Good ERD starts with good synchronization. Synchronization is the key to a good ERD. So as long as they're synchronized, the pharmacy know when it's going to drop, when it's going to come down, when it's to give the patient. What you don't want, the last thing, is obviously the same patient, several items, all falling at different times. Synchronization is the key to good ERD. Okay, RA tokens no longer required. Obviously the pharmacy didn't need it. And to address other questions is suitable patients only. Very important you choose the right patients who are on their remain stable, a long-term condition. Like I said, you can do ERD, minimum is 2 months. You can do it for 3, 6, 9, 12. If you reauthorize your medication for 6 months, you can do ERD for 6 months. If you reauthorize for 3 months, you can do it for 3 months. So obviously what you don't want to do is prescribe ERD batch. So obviously we do say obviously keep it synchronized. We do say obviously make sure you check the number of issues, the quantity and the intervals. So on that example there, a 12-month supply will be 13 issues. So if you do a 12-month review, you give 28 day, 13 issues times 28, not 12 times 28. Obviously the patient will be 1 month short on that. You can also do PRNs. Obviously we also recommend you do PRNs on a separate script as well. So you probably do 1 month supply for 84 days on a separate script. Okay. So obviously don't put everything on ERD. Obviously control drugs, drugs that are going to frequently be changed, specials, something that the pharmacist is going to get difficult to get hold of.
obviously just be aware of what you put on ERD. Stable patients only I'd recommend, long term. And hopefully this will encourage you to all get started. So obviously start small, and obviously we don't want you to rush into it. Probably do perhaps one patient a week, and you could probably start with that one pharmacy. So if you've got a good relationship with your pharmacy next door or with the pharmacy down the road, you can just start with them and start small and start slowly. It's slowly but surely, and I guarantee you, in the long term, you will reap the benefits. Okay, so what we want to see is obviously maximizing ERD. You can find all this, like I say, you will all get sent out the slides later on, and you can find all this information on our website. If you go into NHS digital website, there's an EPS benefits calculator there, also an ERD section for prescribers as well. And you can also track your progress as well, how you're doing the EPS and ERD as well. Okay. And that's my contact details. As Tom mentioned, happy for me to support you to increase ERD. If you have any issues with EPS or ERD, please don't hesitate to contact myself or Tom. I'll be happy to work with yourself to try and sort out those issues that you had. Cheers. Thank you.